Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers finish off the trip 3-3. LeBron and AD both are great on Sunday. Russ sits in the fourth. What's going on here? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends. Get those bonus episodes. But however it is, no matter how you get your podcasts or where, always free, never going to be behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube, which is now zooming towards 10,000 subscribers, that channel, which we really appreciate. That's where you go to get the podcast a little early. That's where all the breaking news is going to appear first. So definitely want to be part of that growing, vibrant community of Lakers fans that is developing over there. Want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. So a lot to get into. The Lakers have a brief and difficult homestand coming up that we want to touch on. We're actually going to talk to John Corrales of Locked On Celtics for Tuesday's show, previewing that game, the Lakers versus Celtics tomorrow. LeBron and AD both really strong, while Russ sits the entire fourth quarter, Andy. So that is something that was definitely notable. But overall, before we get into some of the details of Sunday's win over Detroit, 124-117, not necessarily a lot of style points, but you win for getting out of there with a victory. How do you look at this road trip now that it's over? 3-3 was the benchmark that we both set, would be like, that's a good trip. I still can't help but feel like it was sort of vaguely disappointing, even with that 3-3 finish.
Well, I think it's a strong road trip. Like, on balance, you can't look at a trip that difficult and come out of it 3-3 and not think it's positive. I mean, teams that are firmly in contention when they have a road trip like that, you will often say, if you split it, at minimum, you've done your job. Mm-hmm. That being said, though, I think when you talk about the vague disappointment, it's when you start looking at some of the context of it, whether you're talking about the comeback that wasn't against Philadelphia, where they got gifted this opportunity down the stretch by Philadelphia inexplicably just crapping the bed down the stretch of this game.
Some of the worst basketball you're ever going to see a supposedly competent team play.
Right.
And it was, and the Lakers, all they had to do was make their free throws, and they win that game.
Or, score in overtime.
but if you make free throws, you're not even in overtime.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They got the gift of bad execution and some very strange decisions by Doc Rivers in the last couple minutes of that game, and they were unable to capitalize. But then also, too, there's the disappointment that's no fault of their own of Anthony Davis getting sick.
Yes.
The game against Cleveland that they lost, they played the Cavaliers, who are one of the best teams in the league, really competitively for three quarters. Like, that was a legit game before the difference without AD, I think, eventually was just too much for the Lakers to handle. But they played in a way that makes you think they could have beaten Cleveland had Anthony Davis
AD been there, especially carrying all that momentum from the first two games of the trip and all that. I 100% agree. And that's a lot of what I was getting at, is like, the Philly game is, it was not a game that deserved to win. It was not a game that they should have won, in the sense that their overall play was worthy of victory on the road against like a credible opponent. But nonetheless, they had every opportunity to go ahead and steal it, and they didn't. And it would have been real nice for this team that is clawing their way, hopefully back to 500 and relevance in the Western Conference playoff race, to have that game in their pocket. But a lot, like I said, like is that disappointment that they just kind of had this moment pulled out from underneath them. That said, I was impressed with Sunday's game for a few reasons. Lakers fans might look at this and say, they let Detroit back in the fourth quarter, or Detroit earned their way back in, whatever it is. They could have put Detroit away. I think 6-game, LeBron talked about this afterwards, 6th game of a 6-game trip. I don't think you start weighing in on style points. The Lakers went in for much of the game, maintained that sort of 8 to 12 point lead that shows that, okay, it's not over yet, but you are in control. I think, except for some poor choices, I would say late in the fourth, which is a trend that I think that they've had. I didn't love how they played the fourth quarter. Some of Detroit getting back in that game was Bogdanovic in the third, and his teammates, quite frankly, hitting every 3-pointer that they missed in the first half. And Bogdanovic was just drilling everything. I think if you can get out of that game with a win, you said that's a good game. I loved how AD played. I loved how LeBron played. I loved, Andy, that they, in the first half, played well and built a lead without being hyper reliant on Anthony Davis. That was one of our takeaways in the Philly game, was like, good God, like they really can be very reliant on him. AD was good in the first half, but he wasn't the whole team. And I thought the way that they played was good. So there were some positive moments that came out of that. I think this game broadly for me.
Well, I mean, a big reason that they were so good, particularly in the first half, when you mentioned not being so AD reliant, I thought they did this well for a lot of the game, but especially in the first half. They did the best job of moving off ball as a team that they've done in probably a few weeks. I mean, like even the period where they were playing their best, I don't recall them ever playing this well off ball. Like, Russ was putting on an assist clinic in the first half, and a lot of that was just setting up LeBron, who kept moving off ball. Like he kept setting up LeBron for some of the easiest baskets LeBron's had in a while, and even the baskets where LeBron wasn't the beneficiary. I just thought they did a really good job in general of just creating easy looks for themselves by simply being in continual motion. And that's a really good way to not be so AD centric, AD reliant, the way you want to put it. Just give yourself easier looks. And they did.
I thought anytime, and we can carry some of this over the break, but like anytime the Lakers, because the real problem with Westbrook hasn't necessarily been Westbrook with Davis. It's been the three of them together, which is something that didn't happen in the fourth quarter. And we'll talk about that as the show goes on. And then when LeBron and Westbrook play together, and a lot of what you're talking about with Westbrook, there are a couple of nice plays where LeBron's running the baseline, timed it out really well. Second half, a great play where LeBron, I think I'm sorry, that was to Anthony Davis, but Westbrook's, running the baseline, gets the pass, feeds a diving Anthony Davis. Like, to your point, guys are moving well, but the 2-man game at the top of the key, and running those sets with LeBron and Westbrook was unusually good in this one. And if that is a trend, that if you can make more positive minutes with Westbrook and LeBron together and figuring out how to make that work, it's going to be really important for them going forward, because that's the combo that hasn't been effective. Want to talk a little bit more about this whole AD centric thing and why it matters so much the Lakers performed well without him having to dominate in the first half. Austin Reaves is showing himself to be a pretty darn reliable clutch 3-point shooter, at least in this game certainly was. So a lot to cover, including Russell Westbrook after that assist clinic in the first, not playing in the entire fourth quarter. Plenty more to get to. We'll do it next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Rocket Money. Are you wasting money on subscriptions? If so, you are not alone, friendo. 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about. Maybe it's an unused Amazon Prime account, Hulu account that you never watch, whatever. There's a great app, though, that I use that helps me track all of my expenses. And because of it, I don't waste money on subscriptions that I never use. And you might have heard of it. It's called Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. And this app shows you all of your subscriptions in one place and cancels what you don't want anymore. Rocket Money can even be used to find subscriptions you forgot you were even paying for, like Napster or something ridiculous like that. Just to cancel those type of
You
subscriptions,
face.
all you got to do is Friendster. Just press cancel and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Cancel unnecessary subscription with Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Again, it could save you hundreds per year. Seriously, rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
So this was a strange game, Andy, Sunday with the Lakers, because if you just look at the box score, there's so much in it to like for the Lakers. AD and LeBron, hyper efficient, 34 points for AD on 12 of 18 shooting, 10 of 12 from the free throw line. LeBron, super efficient, 14 of 24, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. He had 5 assists. The Lakers as a group only turned the ball over once. Lonnie Walker was 7 of 10. They shot 42.5% from three-point range. Pretty good. They shot 55% from the floor. Pretty good. They only turned the ball over 11 times. They shot more free throws than Detroit. Like all of these things together, and yet, like they couldn't quite put Detroit away until the very, very end. I guess kudos to the Pistons, but that's what I said. Like it felt like a game to me, Andy, where I thought the Lakers played a little better than the score kind of turned out. I'm not sure if you saw it the same way.
I don't see it the same way. The defense for the Lakers got progressively worse as it went along.
That is true.
Particularly the third quarter, it was often abysmal, and
well, the third, but like I said, the third was just, to some degree, was just dudes getting hot and hitting the ball. Not every shot, but a lot of it was.
I thought their defense got worse over the course of the game. Detroit in the beginning was just, they were missing shots that competent basketball teams make.
That's fair.
And they started becoming, if nothing else, by Piston standards, more competent. I think the Lakers played well enough in this game. I imagine they are mentally exhausted, like we talked about before.
Sure.
I'm not
including that in my evaluation.
Sure. Well, look, I'm not upset over the idea that I don't think they played a brilliant game against this team, because the last game of a long road trip, I don't care who you're up against, is always a test in and of itself. But if you're asking me, did I walk away from this game feeling like the Lakers showed me something? The answer would be no. Yeah, I wasn't necessarily looking for them to show me something, because this isn't the game that I would choose. Other than, again, just
show me you can go out and win was the only thing I was looking for.
Right, exactly. But no, I don't think they played any better than the score. I think they played like they won by 7 points against a terrible Pistons team.
So it was like, I do feel like Detroit, if you watch them, it didn't always work. Again, we're talking about a 7-22 now basketball team. But it didn't. Detroit gave a bit of a preview of how teams are going to start attacking AD, where, aggressive doubles and all this kind of stuff. Not that they didn't invent this, but as AD really becomes the the focal point of this team, also the center, I think teams are going to make the Lakers prove it. Prove that you can beat us without LeBron isn't quite LeBron anymore, being able to just get to the free throw line at will and dominate that way, where you automatically pay if you give him any kind of opening. Westbrook, we encourage to take extra shots, like go for it. Lonnie Walker, does he totally have everybody? Austin Reaves, do teams totally believe? This is going to be important for the Lakers, especially as they get up against the really good teams, to be able to find ways to be effective and score without Anthony Davis putting up 20 points a half.
Yeah. The script for the Lakers this year now, I think, is different than it's been in years past. That's going to be something, we talked about this before, like it's an adjustment for not just Anthony Davis, it's an adjustment for LeBron. It's an adjustment for their teammates to sort of see the team and the dynamics differently than they have in the past. Even for Darvin Ham, as much as he came into this season declaring we go as AD goes, you still have to see it in order to know that that is a sustainable formula. So it probably requires a little bit of adjustment for him. Who knows? Maybe it becomes an adjustment for Bojan Bogdanovic, because my God, did that guy play like, forget the idea that he was auditioning for the Lakers. He played like a guy that was personally insulted that the Lakers have not yet deemed him worthy for a first round pick. And basically it's like, F
two
you,
first round
mother
picks, Andy. Use them both.
Yeah, he's like, F you, mother effers. And then combined with the fact that Harrison Fagan over at Silver Screen and Roll noted this on his Twitter feed. Patrick Beverley was, and this was a game where you really got the full Patrick Beverley experience, positive and negative.
Waves.
He
was all of it.
Yeah. He started out guarding Bogdanovic and guarding him pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Then he started talking some bleep to Bogdanovic at the free throw line. Bogdanovic then proceeded to, I believe, hit 5 threes in a row, or 5 threes in the third quarter, in pretty close succession, if not consecutive possessions. And that's where he really began. He'd been playing well before, but that's when he really began melting the Lakers' faces. And again,
it's a good way of putting it.
And right down to, and this was also another Patrick Beverley moment that also can lead us into the Russell Westbrook discussion. Beverley, on the heels of 2 disastrous Westbrook moments, fouled egregiously Bogdanovic at the 3-point line in shooting.
Uh-huh.
Like, I don't know if he was trying to block the shot or trying to body him or whatever, but it was terrible.
It looked like he was trying to strip him. I don't know.
Terrible decision.
It was not good.
Yeah, sending an 88%er to the line for 3 free throws. And look, Beverley, to be fair to Patrick Beverley, last Detroit possession, he rendered Bogdanovic unable to get a shot off. Like, Bogdanovic had to pass the ball off. And like, Beverley was all over him in that moment, combined with him getting 3 straight assists on 3 straight possessions, and also still unable to score unless it's a concession basket.
He looked, by his standards in terms of that, like, it was quite a lot of output. It was all over the place. But I would like to say, we say this all the time in relation to teams with LeBron or teams with Anthony Davis. We talked about it with Kobe. It's the same with the Lakers and other teams. Don't poke the bear. Don't poke the bear. Don't poke the bear. Just leave the bear alone, especially when the bear plays for the Detroit Pistons. And it's not a good team. And the only way that your team is going to lose the game probably is if the bear gets angry and gets on a roll. Don't poke the bear. Real quick before we get to Westbrook, Austin Reaves hit a pair of massive 3-pointers in this game. The most critical, there is live shot of Austin Reaves. The most critical being at the end of the game, the last Lakers possession that gave them a 5-point lead.
Off a totally busted possession.
Busted LeBron. They were packing the paint. LeBron. They were looking for AD, couldn't get it to him. LeBron couldn't get into the paint, and he's just sort of like, okay, I'll kick it to Reaves, who, to his credit, because he is high basketball IQ, all that kind of stuff, moves to the right spot, makes himself available to the right place, and put himself in the corner for the event. But he buried it. It was not an easy 3, even, but it wasn't like one of these beautifully set up, standing by yourself corner 3s. It was like, okay, clock expiring. I'm kind of backing up. I'm maybe falling out of bounds. So Reaves at this point is been on a bit of an upswing with that as well. He's now shooting 37% from 3. You and I both said before the season started that Reaves shooting 3-pointers, a competent shooting Austin Reaves for 3, because while people assumed he was good at 3s, because look at him, last year he was actually not a good 3-point shooter. Do you buy him at this point as a viable, 35 to 40% 3-point shooter? Do you think this sustains itself? If not, how much more do you need to see before you buy into him at this level? I'm not talking Bogdanovic 45, but 37% is a lot different than 32.
I need to see more, because it's a little bit front loaded. Like if you look at his
No, you're right.
splits, it's gone progressively down. So I need to see a bit more of it. I will say this. I am absolutely sold on Austin Reaves nut check shots in the fourth.
Yeah.
Like I am absolutely sold on him as maybe a low volume overall 3-point shooter, but somebody that will be nails on a big shot.
He's not going to be afraid of it.
Yeah, well, he's done it now a few times. And, you know,
Yeah.
Anthony Davis said after the game is one thing about Austin, he loves hitting big shots for us. And, you know, there are some guys like, you know, I remember years ago, Jordan Farmar, as inconsistent a player as he could be, he had kind of a flair for hitting big shots too. Like some guys are just good in those specific moments. I am absolutely sold on Austin Reaves as that guy. I mean, I don't know yet if I'm sold on him as a, you know, high 30s% 3-point shooter on a season.
Yeah, fair enough. He's hit, I think, 6 of his last 10. That's pretty good. Like, the only reason I ask is his ceiling as a player is dependent, I think, in a lot of ways on how good of a 3-point shooter he can develop as. Because, like, the quality of player that he is, he's showing to be very versatile, all these kind of stuff. But, like, you know, smoother in the paint, great footwork, clever with the ball, can score and get fouled from a lot of angles. But ultimately, I think what creates that highest ceiling is if he can do all that and be a 38 to 41% 3-point shooter, that is a special player that's going to cost the Lakers a ton of money. It'd be a shame they can't have him on the cheap for one more year, but that's a conversation for another day. Let's talk Russ. Assist clinic, as we noted earlier in the show, in the first half, sat in the entire fourth quarter. That's next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every potential new hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and you want to be 100% sure that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your job faster and for free. It's easy to lay out all the information about your business, the environment you want to foster, projects that you do, and from there, add the job that you're looking to fill and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. And small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, I know I should pay more attention to our own Twitter feed at Cam Brothers, but I was just looking at it while you were doing that read and noticed that you retweeted a piece of information that the awesome Sesame Street 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is the Pointer Sisters.
I had no idea. No idea.
People don't remember. Sesame Street was downright funky back in the day. But oh my God. Check it out at Cam Brothers. Anybody who is of our relative age, I'm sure remembers that thing and also has that it's the Pointer Sisters. So who we once met at an Acapulco on Sunset. It's a whole other story that we cannot tell. So I before we get to Russ, you made the joke about Bogdanovic being insulted and maybe was he auditioning for the Lakers? It is not unheard of for players to play really well against the Lakers and then be signed by them. It's sort of how the Lakers operate. So, I mean, I'm not sure if you were entirely joking, half joking, or were deadly serious.
I mean, look, Pelinka's not quite Doc Rivers in that way. I mean, like Doc, you want to get signed by a Doc team, just torch them once. That's enough. Like with the Lakers these days, it's more, were you ever repped by Rob Pelinka? Were you ever repped by Pelinka, or are you currently with Clutch?
Did you light up the Lakers? Yes. Like, are you a Clutch client? Yes. Like, if you get like 3 of those 4 correct, it's a given. They're going to either try to acquire you or will. Russ, Good moments in the first half in terms of finding guys, orchestrating the offense, dropping dimes, as they say, talking about basketball. Sat the entire fourth quarter. Um, I I don't get like I think it's a good thing that I don't spend a lot of time focused on Westbrook now in terms of is he going to play, is he not going to play, because he's occupying this 6-man role, and the Lakers have moved his playing time around a fair amount this year. It shows that they have other options, that they're willing to use them and all that. But not playing at all in the fourth quarter was interesting. What do you think was going on?
Were I to guess, and it's purely a guess right now because to the best of my knowledge, Darvin was not asked about this after the game, or at least that I saw.
I didn't see anything about it.
Right. So this is me purely speculating. Russ in the third quarter had 5 points on 2 of 4 shooting, but he also had 4 turnovers, and he had a god-awful last minute or so of the game. Like, he had a turnover that was pretty bad that led to an Alec Burks transition 3. Then with about 30-ish seconds left in the quarter, he did one of his patented, I have to make this a 2-for-1. Like, Russ loves a 2-for-1. I mean, he treats those like a BOGO sale. Like, that man loves him like a buy one, get one free.
Does it matter that what you're buying is something worth having? Not necessarily. Nope. You get the second one free, Andy.
Yeah. And his, of course, because he loves this just as much as he loves a 2-for-1 BOGO. It was a pull-up 3 that missed. And that is what led to what I talked about earlier, the possession where Patrick Beverley fouled Bogdanovic, which, to be clear, that's not on Russ. That is on Patrick Beverley. But this was also in a quarter where Detroit scored 41 points, got the game within 1 by the end of the third quarter. And it felt like things were starting to get too sloppy defensively and too careless. And those are all things that could lead to Russ not playing. That's my theory on what it was. I think it was like the last minute is what put it over the edge.
I feel like there's no impetus at this point to feel like you have to play Westbrook. There have been a couple times where I feel like maybe he's stayed in games, but like the whole, most of, I think, of the why is this guy playing, veteran energy, what was promised, locker room politics, whatever it might be, criticisms of Darvin Ham and the rotation tend to be centered around Beverley, not more than Westbrook, but more than. But I will say this, he is the worst fourth quarter net rating on the team by a mile. His defensive rating in the fourth quarter is 132.9. So basically 133. For people who
are unaware, points. The lower the better.
Yeah. Higher, you want a high offensive rating.
Yes.
And a lower defensive rating. It means the Lakers give up 133 points per 100 possessions in fourth quarters with Russ on the floor. Look, LeBron's point differential in the fourth quarter, not great, certainly not as high as you want it to be. Anthony Davis is barely above water. When your team has been bad for much of the year, you're going to have some scary numbers on this side of the ball, late in games and all that. And Lakers have had some pretty bad fourth quarters, but his numbers are the worst on the team. And I do think it's worth watching to find out how much, particularly defensively, Darvin, how much leeway Darvin gives him. And I don't think it's going to be very much, particularly as they start to get more competitive. He's getting more opportunities to lead second units, to have the ball in his hands, regardless of whether or not LeBron is there. I think they're trying to find ways to really keep Westbrook engaged and playing at his best. But, I mean, there's only so long where you can ignore a defensive rating in the fourth quarter that is 10 points worse than the next closest guy on the team.
Yeah. I mean,
it's really bad.
If it's a fourth quarter where you need buckets and the offense has stalled out, I could see Westbrook being in there because he is, other than LeBron, the best shot generator on this team. And there are days where Russ is every bit as good as LeBron. We've seen this season. But what gets him in trouble, I think, is in part what you talked about, the defense. But also, too, fourth quarters are where mistakes get magnified the most. And Russell
also, Andy, where teams have their best players on the floor.
Yeah. And look, Russell Westbrook is a really intelligent person, but I don't think he's a very intelligent basketball player. At least not
on that,
regularly.
not on that side of the ball.
No, but I mean, just
offensively, I think some. I don't. You finish your point. But I don't want to.
I think Russ has always
offensively more than defensively, but defensively definitely not.
I think Russ has always been a force of will player, because for so long his athleticism was so much better than 99.7% of the league that he was able to just impose his will on opponents in ways that I think outthinking them, he never really had to.
I think
because he could just dominate.
Fair.
And I don't think as his athleticism has declined, his basketball intelligence and decision-making has gone up to offset it. Like, again, I want to make this clear. Russ is a smart guy. I'm not in any way trying to denigrate his actual intelligence. I'm just saying I don't think he always plays smart. I mean, look, maybe he's a really smart player.
That's true. He makes strange choices.
That's what I'm talking about that's what I'm talking about with basketball intelligence. I'm not talking about how well does he understand the game. Russ understands the game better than I do. Obviously, like, it's not a matter of not understanding the game. I'm talking about he does whatever understanding of the game he has, which, sure, very high, does not always manifest itself in his decision making, which is where the intelligence matters the most.
So I think there are two things to take away from this, is the reasons that you're talking about there. But I also think it's interesting that Russ not playing in the fourth quarter, so far as we could tell, was not something that was made a big deal out of after the if Darvin was asked about it, it was not a major point of emphasis. It wasn't flying around Twitter. It wasn't talked about on the post-game show and all these other things. That is a good place for the Lakers to be, where if Russ doesn't play the final quarter of a critical game, nobody really talks about it. That's a much healthier place for the Lakers to be. And it shows that the choice that they made to just kind of pull the cord on this relatively quickly and early in the season and get her done was a smart one. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you go to see the show. And generally speaking, you get a little bit earlier than the audio-only product. A reminder, John Corrales from Locked On Celtics. Boo, the hated Celtics. Boo. He will be on the show on Tuesday to get ready for Lakers versus Celtics. Really hard mini homestand. Celtics on Tuesday, Denver on Friday, and then they go back out on the road. So probably need to split these games just to stay on track for a 500 month. And we will see everybody on Tuesday.